I know that when you take this time, you are going to feel it. You're going to feel it. Your dog is going to reveal things to you in those quiet pauses, in those moments of stillness. That's when you're going to see the things, right? We're in a society and an environment where we're constantly go, 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 do, and we have this expectation that we need to do the things and all the things. But take a moment, just be quiet, be with your dog, and let the dog tell you what's going on, because you'd be surprised what they tell you. Indeed. Ask the dog and you will be surprised what they tell you. This episode is all about the power of the pause, taking a moment to be still, be quiet, and see what it is that your dog has to say. I love this concept. I hope you do too. Let's get into it. Ready to have a calm and peaceful life with your dog without the stress of those fear-based behaviors? Hi, I'm Tracy, and I've been there, overwhelmed by all the conflicting dog training advice and unsure of what to do next. But now I help dog lovers like you simplify your life with your dog by building confidence naturally, fostering trust, and addressing those fear-based challenges. So, if you're ready, stop chopping those chicken wieners and let's get to it. This episode is brought to you by the Calm Down Dog Boot Camp, featuring Tracy
and Paisley,
happening February 10th and 11th.
Okay, let's be real. Have you ever felt like no matter what you try, your dog just isn't getting it?
Oh, gosh, yes, I have been there. And here's the thing. Sometimes it's not a training issue.
So, all those obedience classes weren't the magic answer?
Not exactly. I mean, if your dog is struggling with fear, no amount of sit or stay will fix that. In fact, sit and stay may actually be making things much worse.
Wait, what?
I know, it's true. And that's why we need a different approach. By understanding what's really going on underneath that behavior and how we are influencing that outcome.
But don't worry, we've got you.
That's right. In this boot camp, we're going to show you how to recognize those fear-based behaviors, shift your mindset, and step into the leadership role your dog really needs.
And by the way, there's a crazy transformation video we're sharing that'll just blow your mind.
Yes, but no spoilers. You have to be there to see it.
Sign up at beyondobedience.ca/bootcamp for this free 2-day boot camp happening February 10th and 11th.
Just 1 hour a day, and you'll walk away with real actionable steps to help you and your dog feel calm and safe and secure.
Can't wait to see you there.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Beyond Obedience. I'm your host, Tracy. I am so glad that you are here with me today. If you're new to the podcast, welcome and hello. Nice to meet you. Be sure that we are pen pals and all of that good stuff so that we can stay connected. Today, I wanted to talk a little bit about horses. Believe it or not, I was down in the field. I was hugging a horse. It was really cold today. It was really cold. And I'm not going to lie, when it's cold and I'm doing chores, I just like to kind of bury my face into the neck of my horses. One, because they're warm, but two, I just love the smell of horses. Anyway, I was down there hanging out with Flame, and I was kind of like snuggling into her neck. And I always have like the most extreme gratitude for this horse. This horse has given me so much, giving me so many moments of joy. I think some of my fondest memories where I can think about when I was smiling the most, it had to do with Flame, like just so much. But she also taught me so much. And if you didn't know this, a lot of the trainings that I do, certainly a lot of the work that went into the Fearful Dog Fearless framework comes from my work with and learning and loving horses. And Flame has a lot to do with that. And I was thinking about that after I was coming up to the house today to record this podcast, because I was like, one of the greatest lessons I think that Flame taught me was the idea of the power of the pause. This concept that sometimes we need to just take a beat, And I remember it because we were doing some natural horsemanship games. And I was working with Flame. If you haven't heard the trailer the trailer story. It's somewhere. I should probably figure out where it is before I have said this, but there's an episode where I talk about her like not getting on a trailer. Anyway, yeah, same horse. So Flame, had she had some stubbornness about her. She was a very, very confident mare. She liked to bully the geldings. That's kind of a mare thing, but she stood her ground. And, Flame and I had been known to have, a little bit of standoff when she'd be like, I'm not doing it. And I'm like, you got to do it, that kind of thing. But in this one particular occasion, we were in the arena and there was a bunch of us working. I was over in my corner. We're just trying to get the horses to do certain things like yield to our pressure, move sideways, back up, come towards us, all this stuff using, leash or not leash, lead rope. I got to remember my species here. Anyway, I was working with Flame and she just wasn't, she just wasn't doing it. And the thing is like Flame knew, like, I know, you know what I'm saying? When like they know what you're talking about. Right? You're like, you know what I'm talking about. This isn't new to you. And so I was asking her to like move over and she was like not doing it. And I'm like, what is going on with you? So I would immediately sort of up the ante or up the pressure a little bit, like maybe, move the rope a little bit faster or tap the stick on the ground a little bit faster, like just to put a little bit more rhythmic pressure on or a little bit more spatial pressure, whatever. And she still wasn't moving. She was just kind of staying there and staring at me. And I'm like, what is happening? Like, you're just really being, and of course, I'm not going to lie. Like there's other people around. So embarrassment, right? She's starting to embarrass me. I'm like, this horse knows what I'm talking about. I've been practicing, I swear, and I was starting to get frustrated. So I'm like, move. And then when I did, like when she did move, she'd do the opposite. Like she'd push towards me or come towards me. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, this isn't you. Like, what is happening? And so Greg, my mentor, I think seeing me being frustrated, he came over and he said to me, he's like, I think what I need you to do is ask her and then just wait. Like give her a moment. Just wait. Just pause. And I'm like, pause. And I'm like, she's not going to do it. Right. And he's like, I think you just need to pause. And I said, well, why? Like I thought like, if they don't go with phase 1, you bump up to phase 2. And if they don't go with phase 2, you bump up to phase 3. And he was like, yeah, but I think she's overwhelmed. And I kind of laughed. I like scoffed at that. I'm like, Flame's not overwhelmed. It's Flame. Like it's Flame. And he's like, no, I think she's a little bit overwhelmed. Let's just see. So of course I back up. I start from the beginning. I start at phase 1. I'm doing my thing. And he's like, no, just wait a second. And while I was waiting, all of a sudden I'm looking at her and her ears are moving. And I'm noticing now her eyes. And I'm like, oh man, she's overwhelmed. Like she was overwhelmed. I'm like, why is she overwhelmed? And he said, because Tracy, your arena is filled with horses she doesn't know and people she doesn't know. Like this isn't her herd. And after he said it, I was like, oh, like, duh, right? You ever had that moment where when somebody says it to you, you're like, oh, that makes sense. So I stopped. I'm like, okay. I'm like, let me try all this again. So I backed up and I was like, let's start all over. And I started giving her a moment and I just stood and waited. And it was like in that space and time, she came back to me and was like, okay, you're here. And then she started listening and she started moving. And then she got it. And I was giving her like the rubs and all that stuff. And I'm trying to connect with her. And now I'm coming from a space of, I didn't realize you were going through this. Like, I'm sorry. Like, I thought you were the queen of all queens when it came to being the bully, right? And I've always kind of remembered that lesson because one, it was out of character for her. So that's why I was like, you're just being a brat, kind of a thing. And I didn't pick up on it. So I think the greatest lesson there was this idea of not only is the power of the pause beneficial to the animal, but it's also beneficial to us, right? So pausing, let's talk about dogs now. Pausing, if you've asked your dog to do something, especially your fearful dog or your unconfident dog, you've asked them to do something and they're just not moving. Sometimes just giving them a moment, giving them space to process that information and decide on how they want to respond. I've mentioned this before, but I'm going to talk about it again. And actually, I learned all of these concepts from working with horses, but I've mentioned the idea about right brain and left brain before. Again, this isn't anatomically correct. We're just saying right and left for the ease of it to kind of make it clear. But the right brain is your dog's think or instinctual side of their brain. Their left brain is their thinking side. And I have a whole like training on dogonalities with the different dogonalities. If you guys are interested in that, let me know. Put a comment in. Let me know if you want me to do podcast episodes on that, because I will. But for simplicity's sake, in this particular case, all you really need to know is that right brain is the instinctual brain, left brain is the thinking brain. So what sometimes happens is if our dog, and it's fluid, right? Your dog isn't always right brain or left brain. Your dog slips in and out of those, right? So let's say your dog's doing just fine, but then they have a right brain moment. And that's what happened to Flame. She was normally a left brain, but she slipped into right brain because she was uncomfortable with the new horses there. So let's say that happens to your dog. When that happens, right, when they've slipped into right brain, they can't access left brain right away. It takes them a while to snap back into that thinking side of the brain. So if you're standing there giving obedience commands or obedience cues to your dog and their right brain, they can't hear it. And there's no point in repeating it or putting more pressure on them. You're just going to overwhelm them even more. So allowing yourself to and your dog to have that pause allows the dog some time to kind of come back to that left brain where they're like, oh, I'm sorry, were you talking to me? And sometimes it looks like that. I will say that. I see it all the time when dogs flip back and they almost have that, oh, shoot, were you saying something? Like they can't access that part of their brain when they're in survival mode. So when a dog encounters a fearful stimulus, they're going to slip into right brain, right? And they can't hear you. So you got to give them a second. Just give them a pause, give them a second. So pausing gives them the space and the time to process that information. I think where some of the conflict for us humans comes in is with our obedience training, right? If you've ever done any obedience training, there's a timing to it, right? We say the word, then we give the cue, then the dog does the thing, then we give the reward. And we're expecting it as the dog knows the cues to go faster and faster and faster. So when I say sit, their butt hits the ground, right? That's the expectation. And it happens quickly. But if we're talking about behavior, we want to take that Pat Pirelli advice, right? That quote that I love, that take the time it takes so eventually it takes less time. We want to take that time. We want to give them that time to process it, right? So I really wanted to sort of share that Flame story today because it not only is the power of the pause beneficial for the animal, but in the case of Flame, it was beneficial for me. Pausing allowed me to actually see what was going on, to actually take a moment and watch my horse and go, oh man, you are overwhelmed. Like her ears were moving constantly. Like she wasn't focusing on me at all. Like her ears were like one direction and the other direction. She was focusing on everything else in that arena and not on me. And here I am just up in the pressure. Like, come on, I said move. She couldn't see me or hear me. Right? So pausing allows us to be present. It allows us to maybe calm down a little bit, if I'm being real, right? It allows you to observe those subtle cues that maybe your dog is giving you. And honestly, it's going to allow you to build patience, which patience and calmness will make you a much more effective leader. And I think in general, just practicing this pausing is going to allow you to overcome the urge to rush, right? I think with society expectations and pressures on ourselves, makes us feel like we need to have quick results, but we don't. This is behavior. It's going to take some time, right? So how can we, utilize the power of the pause? Obviously, if we are actually training or asking our dogs to do something and they're in a new environment, take a moment, right? You're in a new environment, all of a sudden your dog's just not doing it. Take a moment, give them a second. Don't keep repeating the command. Just give them a second, right? Let's see what they're doing, Like, are they listening? Are they talking? Are they not there? Are they having a little, internal moment? You don't know, right? Give them a second for that. On a walk, take a moment on a walk. Just things aren't going your way. Just take a moment. Just take a pause. What's going on with you? What's happening? Let's just sit down for a second. Let's take a beat, right? And then, in your daily life. And if you haven't heard me talk about this before, taking time just to be with is a great way to pause. Just be with, just be quiet, be silent, be with, be observant, and see what it is that's going on for your dog. And I know that when you take this time, you are going to feel it. You're going to feel it. Your dog is going to reveal things to you in those quiet pauses, in those moments of stillness. That's when you're going to see the things, right? We're in a society and an environment where we're constantly go, 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 do, and we have this expectation that we need to do the things and all the things. But take a moment, just be quiet, be with, and be with your dog, and let the dog tell you what's going on, because you'd be surprised what they tell you. A quick story. I was working with a client who had a dog that was refusing to go down the road. There was just one road. Like every single time it would be like, I'm not going down that way. And it wanted to go this way. And the interpretation from her owner was that she was just being a brat, right? Like she liked the other path better. That's where she got to go to the sniffy walks and all of that stuff. And she was just being a brat. And I was like, okay, well, let's get some film on that. She did. She recorded the dog doing it. And the dog was very belligerent. She was like, I'm not going. Like, I'm not going. She was a bigger dog too. So, I mean, it's not like you can just pick her up and be like, we're going this way. You couldn't. So, but I was watching and I'm like, I don't know. I'm having a hard time getting a read on whether or not it's actually stubbornness and being a brat about it. And I said, what I want you to do instead is just get to that intersection before she starts, the whole pancaking and not moving thing. Let's just sit down and see, just to hang out. And sitting down and seeing, especially if you sit down with them and you just observe your dog at dog level, you're going to start to see the world differently. Like, seeing the world from that vantage point is different. It really is. And what she came back with was stuff like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize there's a garbage truck that is always sort of dumping a bin there. She did it a couple days. Like, she did it for a couple days, but she was like, there's always this garbage truck there that bangs a bin, which she reacted to. Like, she kind of tensed up when that happened. There was a lot of commotion essentially going down this one road. And I'm like, it's possible that she's not being a bugger. She's just really unsure about going down that road, right? And of course, after we made that discovery, I had to then go through the whole don't feel guilty about it, because she felt terrible because she was thinking that the dog was being a brat, right? She's like, I thought she was being a brat, but you're right. Now that I look at it, she looks like she's uncomfortable, and I'm like, don't feel bad. Now we know, right? When we know better, we do better. Let's always remember that Maya Angelou quote, when we know better, we do better. Let's not get caught up in guilt. Let's just move forward. And she has. Anyway, I always remember that story just because it was one of those cases where I'm like, let's just stop for a second and just ask the dog, what's going on? And when you stop and you ask the dog and you really truly listen by being quiet, you'll be amazed what they tell you. You'll be amazed what they tell you. All right. I think that's it for today. Thank you very much for joining me today. Hey, as I mentioned at the opening, this episode was brought to you by the Calm Down Dog Boot Camp. I want you there. I want you in that boot camp. It's going to be fun. 2 whole days hanging out, learning all sorts of great stuff, plus Q&As. You get to be a part of the group. You can ask me questions. We are going to have so much fun over those 2 days. Last time we did it, we had a hoot. We're going to do it again. Bigger, better. No, better. I don't know. I messed that up last time too. It's going to be good. You should be there. Make sure you sign up beyondobedience.ca/bootcamp. Get your name in there. Be a part of the fun. And if you're looking for one-on-one help, you can always do that. Just go to beyondobedience.ca. Under the Work With Me tab, you can work with me one-on-one or join the Fearful Dog Fearless Framework student community. Either way, I would love to share this journey with you, my friend. All right. I think that's it for now. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with a friend. 5-star ratings really helps. That's the least you can do. It's the least you can do to help a girl out. Right? Make sure you give me a 5-star rating over on Apple, comment on Spotify, and as always, get out there today and be the person that your dog thinks you are, because your dog thinks that you are amazing, and so do I. Have a wonderful day, and I will see you in the next episode. All right, bye for now.
So all those obedience classes weren't the magic answer?
Not exactly. If you're struggling with fear, nomad.
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 Nomad's land.
Nomad. Oh, and one last thing. This podcast is meant for entertainment and education purposes only and is not meant to replace hands-on professional training. If you're really struggling with your dog, please reach out to a professional in your area. All right, I think that's it. Bye for now.